Could Kyler Murray be an option for the Colts this offseason? We get into that question and much more on today's Insider Program and Everydayer Club Q&A. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network around. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and I'm joined, as always, by Jake Arthur, the boots on the ground for Round Table Sports. Today, we are diving into a Q&A episode, and this Q&A episode is brought to you by our Everydayer Club and our Insider Program. So look in our show notes for ways to join those two programs so you can be featured in Q&A episodes like this in the future. But we have quite a few questions to dive into, spanning from free agency questions to just general offseason questions, and also diving into the draft as well. So Jake, we can't waste any time right now. Let's dive into it. And the first question is the one I led off the show with. There's been a lot of speculation about Kyler Murray out there, where Kyler Murray has offsetting language in his contract now that he is released, to where whatever contract he gets this offseason, that just comes out of what the Cardinals have to pay him. So it's very likely he just signs a minimum contract with another team to kind of, one, screw the Cardinals, so the Cardinals owe him more money, but two, it doesn't do anything regardless. So he's going to sign a vet minimum contract similar to what Russell Wilson did when he was released by the Denver Broncos. So that has led to a lot of Colts fans saying, hey, let's just go get him and be much cheaper at quarterback. So do we think Kyler Murray, one, is a realistic option, and two, would it be an option that either of us would be interested in?
I think he's an option, but not a very likely option. I do think the Colts want to have Daniel Jones as the guy moving forward, regardless of what happens this offseason. I don't necessarily see the best fit with Kyler Murray here with Shane Steichen. My understanding of Murray is, like, obviously there was like maturity concerns and preparation concerns early on, but that it did improve as his career went on. But he's still got injuries. He's still got inconsistent play all over his tape throughout his career. So I do think he's only an option if something crazy falls through with Daniel Jones. And I mean, it would be cheap. That would be A-okay with, I think, a lot of us. They could do much worse than Kyler Murray. But I think the Colts would kind of be caught with their pants down there, because it would be like, what was the plan all along? Kyler Murray was never even planned to be on the market. How did you wind up with him? So,
yeah, I think the only thing he is for the Colts internally is a thing to say to Daniel Jones's camp of like, hey, we could pivot to here. So sign our contract offer that we are offering you. You're not getting the $43 million that you want per season. So sign our offer, or, hey, this other guy's out here for the vet minimum. I think that's all it really is. I don't think it's anything serious for the Colts. And like you said, I don't think he really fits the style of offense that Steichen wants going forward. He wants more of the Shanahan pro style of offense under center. Kyler Murray is the size of a thumbtack. It's hard for him to see over the offensive line. He's got to be in the shotgun. He's got to spread it out. And I just don't think that's what Steichen wants to do going forward. Next question, though. Is WTF specific enough? Unless they are convinced that they can sign Alec Pierce, these moves don't seem to make any sense. And we have multiple shows where I completely agree with you. Again, if they're able to get Pierce signed up before Monday, then I think they probably played their cards right and they were able to gamble correctly with it. But unless you're able to do that, I think they took a chance for no reason whatsoever that puts them in a very vulnerable spot. So I think WTF is pretty specific.
Yeah, to us, the plan all along was to make sure they secured Alec Pierce and Daniel Jones, because they hedged their bets on 2026 being reminiscent of the first half of 2025, in which Jones and Pierce were a huge part of that. But literally took the riskiest route by giving Jones essentially a non-guaranteed tag, the cheaper tag, and then hoping that pacified Alec Pierce, which it clearly has not. So, yeah, we agree. All week we've been saying, maybe it works out for him, but this is the weird way to take.
Yeah, no, for sure. Next question here, again from the Insider Program. Will the Colts pen an actual deal with Daniel Jones or let him play on the tag based on rehab? First off, for me to answer this, I think they absolutely will pen him to a multi-year deal. I don't expect it to be more than 3 years. They would love for it to be 2 years, I'm assuming. But I think it will be right around that 3-year mark. It's just about will it be at 35 million, 36, 37, or does Jones win out and it gets in the 40 plus $million? That'll be the real question here. But I do expect a multi-year deal. I'd be shocked if he played on the transition tag next year.
Yeah, I don't think it's realistic that he plays on the transition tag. It's like he just cannot represent a $37 million cap hit. They can create the money to make that wiggle room work a little bit, but you have no cash to do anything else this offseason. You know, like even if you lose Pierce and you are saying, oh, well, ho hum, we can just have Jones play under this transition tag. It's like, well, you have other things to accomplish. Like these were your two biggest fish you needed to take care of, but you have other fish to fry as well. So yeah, the transition tag, if he played on it, I think that would be asinine. Like that's wild to let him play for that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question here. Do we think we see another team actually pitch Daniel Jones? I think there will be some teams that talk to Daniel Jones and maybe think about how they could structure a contract to make it hard for the Colts to match. But one thing you have to keep in mind with transition tags and like restricted free agents and such is when you offer that money to a player and the player accepts it initially and it's sent to the other team, that all that money that you sign that player to gets put off to the side. Like you can't access that money until there's a decision made on that player. So the Colts can essentially, like, say the Vikings came out of the woodworks and they offered him $40 million per year. The first year cap hit is $50 million to really stress on the Colts, right? The Vikings would have to theoretically be on the hook for $50 million right away, right? So they would have to have that cleared up, make all those moves to clear all that up, and then they can't make any other free agent moves until that's resolved. So the Colts could take that the whole 7 days and just match it, and the Vikings would get all that money back, but with no moves to make, right? Because
They
you'd
would
be
have
in the
lost a
second
week.
week. Right. So it's very risky for another team to offer Daniel Jones. So that's why it's so rare that we ever see a team make an offer on a transition tag player, because it's so risky that you could just miss out an entire free agency period by going for a player. So I don't think the Colts or Jones really expect many teams to make an offer. Again, there might be like a team out there who makes like one, like who like talks to them and sees what they could do. But ultimately, I don't think we're going to see another team make an offer. The only way it would make sense is one of these teams that had like $90 million in cap space made an offer. But all those teams either have quarterbacks or are going to draft a quarterback in this draft. The teams that would realistically go after Jones, like the Vikings or other teams like that, would have to clear up so much space that it would just be so risky for them that I just don't see it happening.
That's brilliant you mentioned that, because I quite literally and never have heard anyone bring up that point before about signing guys to offer sheets and that money needing to be set aside and can't be touched. Like that's a really, really good point. And to that point, I do think there will be some teams that talk to him, but if that's the case and that's the ramifications, I don't know if any other team is going to be as serious enough about him to sign him to an offer sheet, but I do think his representation will talk to some other teams.
Yeah, again, if they feel good about the structure of the contract, pinching the Colts and making sure he stays for them, then you could see an offer happening, but you're not making that offer unless you're pretty darn sure that you're getting him, which I just don't think is going to be out there, because the Colts have been very open about wanting him back. Last question for this segment, though, from Melvin at the Everydayer Club. Could Pierce just be holding out on signing his contract because he wants to make sure Jones is throwing him the ball? Here's my thing. I think Jones, like I just mentioned with the last point there, Jones is like 99.9% going to be the Colts quarterback next season. I think Pierce wants stability long-term with the quarterback position, because Pierce isn't signing a 1-year deal here. He's signing a multi-year contract. So he wants Jones signed for multiple years before signing back with the Colts. But then the problem with this is, again, with this pissing match between the Colts and Jones, they're going to let Jones hit on Monday so they can just still like butt heads about what the price point should be, which exposes Pierce to other people. So I think ideally Pierce does want Jones locked up first before making that decision. I just don't think it's happening before Monday, which leaves the Colts very vulnerable.
I agree. Yeah, I do think he likes the fact that he was tagged and there was some level of commitment. Um, but again, yeah, like if something falls through and Pierce signs a 4-year deal with the Colts, and then you it's like you don't have Jones as your quarterback now because something happened, or it's Riley Leonard, whatever. Like then Pierce just made this enormous investment to the team where you didn't meet him halfway, even though he was probably led to be that. But yeah, like Jones slash quarterback, I think, is a huge part of it. But also, I think he wants to be somewhat guaranteed a more significant role in the offense as well. So there's multiple factors to it. Obviously, I think money will be part of it too. I don't think he's only going to chase the money. But yeah, I mean, I think he wants to see Jones get that new deal, not just the transition tag first.
Yeah, I will say this real quick. I think if the Colts are willing to pay him that 26, 27, $28 million per year price tag that he's likely to get, he would have a bigger role in the offense. I think that's
Yeah.
very safe to assume. You're not paying that guy just to throw the ball to him 80 times in a season. So he would get a much bigger role. It's just all about the quarterback position, I think, because I think he wants to be in Indy. He just wants that security that he's not going to be playing with like a Matt Ryan again or Gardner Minshew type quarterback going forward. But coming up, guys, we're going to continue this conversation about general offseason topics as we continue this Q&A episode featuring our Everydayer Club and Insider program.
We live in a world where we can stream anything, order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets, and somehow buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. Hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps, there's just got to be a better way. But that's why we use Gametime. It gives fans the advantage and makes tickets simple, whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into. I jumped on the app recently to check out tickets for an upcoming concert here in town, and it just took me minutes. You can see the panoramic view of the seat before you buy. The price that you see includes all the fees. There's no surprises at checkout. You can even spot zone deals where you pick the section and then Gametime picks the seat so that you get extra savings. It's just 2 taps and you have great seats locked in. Fast, easy, done. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are doing a special Q&A episode just for our members of the Everydayer Club and Insider program. And remember, with the Everydayer Club, it's kind of a newer thing to us here. You can get 1 month free of the Everydayer Club with the code FREEAGENCY with no spaces now through March 15th. So make sure you hurry up and do that now. That means you're going to get our audio ad-free. And then the conversation from the show keeps on going over to Discord. That's where a lot of these questions came from. So just join the club now at lockedoncolts.supercast.com, or you can even gift a subscription. All right, Zach, let's get back to these guys' questions here. What does the quarterback room and depth chart look like week 1 of 2026? Your guess.
I think Daniel Jones and Riley Leonard are the big part of it. I wouldn't be shocked to see another day 3 quarterback added to the mix, whether it's like Luke Altmaier, I guess, from Illinois, or Cade Klubnik, just because he's the only other name I can think of right now. One of those kind of like day 3 quarterbacks, just to get like another arm in the room, especially when they have 3 7th-round picks currently, with Zaire Franklin and Michael Pittman Jr. and Anthony Richardson all potentially on the trading block. They could get as many as like 8 day 3 picks in this draft. So I think that they could use one of those on a quarterback as well. But I think the top 2 will be Jones and Riley Leonard, and then we'll see what the third quarterback looks like.
I'm going to say it looks like it does now, sans Anthony Richardson. I think they trade Anthony Richardson again for like a day 3 pick, and then it's Daniel Jones, Riley Leonard. And I mean, Seth Hennigan is last year's version of what you just mentioned, essentially, like a 7th-round quarterback, basically. So if they liked Hennigan last year enough to bring him in during the season as he was undrafted, I mean, that's got the same impact to me as just taking, Altmaier, Taylor Green, or someone late in the draft. So I'm going to say it stays like it does now with Seth Hennigan as the QB3.
Yeah, we'll see. If Hennigan survives that long, Jake, you have to get an interview with him in training camp.
All he has to do is be the third quarterback.
I know, but that's still that
but
might be tough.
he's
Yeah.
gonna get some reps though with Daniel Jones missing the offseason. So
Right, if he's still the guy by then.
yeah,
Next question here is poking fun at me. Can we get a kicker battle in training camp so Zach has to cover it? Look, guys, I didn't cover the kicker battle last offseason. I had Jake covering all that, so
yeah.
I'm not touching that. Although, like, if Groupie plays the way he did late last season and we get Schrader back, if the kicker battle is between two good kickers, who am I to complain? I'm not going to complain too much there.
Honestly, yeah, like there was a kicker battle last year. So yeah, I mean, Spencer Strader's knee got like shredded. So like it might be a little bit that he's out. So I mean, hopefully you sign Blake Groupie since he's a restricted free agent and then just kind of go from there and just figure out a good problem until Schrader gets back, essentially. All right, our next question here. This is from our guy Twisted Clown over on the Discord channel. There's a very real chance that Jonathan Taylor becomes a casualty in the Jones and Pierce saga. Hypothetically, what could a team get for Jonathan Taylor? Secondly, seeing other popular names circled in red from popular pundits, who would be the other unlikely trades or cuts for the Colts, like Grover Stewart or what have you? So, like, weigh in on Jonathan Taylor, Grover Stewart, anyone else you think could be moved.
Yeah, I would say very low chance that Taylor or Stewart are moved. They're these guys are still very productive players for the Colts. They've lived up to their contracts, been very good. If anything, I think Taylor could be an extension candidate. I don't think they would move him in this must-win season. Like when we're talking moving like Pittman or moving Jones or Richardson, two of those guys aren't really productive members of the team right now. And the other one with Pittman is just not even remotely worth his contract. I don't think they're just going to subtract just to subtract. So I don't expect Taylor's contract to come into play here or Grover Stewart's. In terms of unlikely trades or cuts, again, Jalen Jones, I think either as a cut or a trade candidate makes sense. I guess we can't say Zaire Franklin anymore because it's been pushed out there publicly, which usually means it's either going to end up in a cut or he hopefully gets moved in a trade. So I don't think we see too many surprising cuts or trades by Tuesday outside of maybe a Jalen Jones type move.
Yeah, the people I most suspect to either get cut or traded. Obviously, Pittman. I think if you bring Pierce back, I'm now starting to think Pittman could be on the chopping block with that because how do you create the extra targets that Pierce wants? Probably not Stewart or Kinney or Jonathan Taylor. Like you mentioned, you maybe add a year or two to Jonathan Taylor's contract because he does have like a pretty big gap between salary cap and dead cap this year. But yeah, Jalen Jones, Jalen Carlisle probably has no trade value because
there's no incentive. If you don't save anything, if you cut him, he's on a cheap day 3 contract.
Yeah, so that's more of like a future cut. But yeah, Jones is probably the one that isn't being talked about enough. That seems almost likely.
Yeah, he's making like I think $3 million this year because of escalators, so that would be a little bit much for him. Next question: is it getting more and more likely that Pittman will be cut or traded instead of restructured with our sudden need for cap space? That's from Jesse. Real quick on that, it really depends on what happens with Pierce because they have a need for cap space, but they can always, again, if they extend Quentin Nelson, then all of a sudden they have the cap space. So it's not a huge deal there. And then could Pittman be tied to the obvious hangups on Pierce and Jones contract signings? That's from Melvin. Again, Pittman, I think it's really dependent on what happens with Pierce. I don't think they're going to cut Pittman if Pierce leaves in free agency. But if they do get Pierce back, I could certainly see them cutting or trading Pittman just because you got to make that space there if you're trying to fit in another big contract. And Pittman should not be making $29 million this year.
Yeah, there's another one on here because there's a lot of Pittman questions. If Pierce does walk, what do the Colts do about Pittman's contract? There's no way they should continue to let him be at $29 million, regardless of whether or not Pierce is there. Essentially, and that's from Ulas. So essentially, my gauge on it is, I think now knowing that Pierce wants to be such a much bigger part of the offense, I do think it puts Pittman kind of in limbo to be cut or traded. I think obviously they would want to trade him. I thought ultimately they would maybe just want to fix that contract, but I just think it's too many mouths to feed. I don't think that contract specifically is holding anything up on Jones and Pierce because the Colts know if that gets in the way too much, they could just simply cut him and create $24 million.
Yeah, they're going to do something with that contract regardless. Even if they have to keep him and Pittman and Pierce is gone, they're still going to touch that contract, like convert some things to signing bonuses, extend for another year, whatever it is. They're going to keep. They're like, even if they keep him, that he's not going to play a $29 million cap hit.
Yeah,
it's just not feasible. But last question for this segment here. Is it a realistic expectation for the Colts to sign Alec Pierce and still address every other need on the roster? And that's from must be Chop from the Discord as well. And then he also goes into detail about it being a catch-22 and like if you get Pierce, is the roster weak? Here's my thing: when you sign guys to the contract, you can control the cap hit, especially in the first like year or two of it. Now, again, you're pushing some of it down the line, but if you are the one who is giving Jones and Pierce these contracts, you can make the first year cap hit fairly low with signing bonuses and pushing money into, again, year 3 and year 4 of these deals. So they can still have a lot of wiggle room to make deals happen in free agency. So that wouldn't hold them back in any regard. It just comes down to the fact of, are they the ones that are actively negotiating these contracts? Because once these guys hit the market, again, if another team makes an offer on Jones, which I don't think is likely, but could happen, that other team is setting the contract for Jones. That could really pinch the Colts. Pierce, if it becomes such a crazy bidding war, there could be a scenario where you have to have more money allocated to him in first year. So again, they want to control the terms here, get them done before Monday. But no, just signing them in a nutshell doesn't really hinder them too much this offseason. They can make moves, they can get under the cap, and they can have plenty of space to go out and sign an impact edge rusher to improve this front seven.
Yeah, they can create a significant amount of cap over what they have right now. So I don't think they'll address every need, but their most significant ones, because I don't think you want to go into the draft having to fill some sort of critical hole. But like, you get Jones, you get Pierce locked up, you get an edge rusher to start alongside Latu, whether that's Hendrickson. Rashawn Gary just hit the open market. That's someone I mentioned last week, I think.
But no, his Instagram was hacked, so technically he has not hit the open market yet.
No, there was already an update, but they said he's probably getting released. But
okay.
Rashawn Gary will probably be available at some point. But like another obvious like starting edge rusher, I do think they probably want to go through the draft for a linebacker and probably safety, because those two groups are so deep this year in the draft. I think you could make it manageable. And then that's your biggest needs right there. Like, you have other modest needs on the roster, but I do think they can they can afford to have free agency address the biggest issues.
Yep. And coming up, guys, we're going to continue this conversation about your guys' Q&As, dive a little bit into the draft to close out this episode.
It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with your stack of papers there, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really even get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're all done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing that your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. All right, welcome back, everydayers and insiders. We are rounding out this special edition of Q&A, where we open up the floor just to the members of our Everydayer Club and Insider program. If you are not yet a member of that, you can absolutely find it in our show notes. We would love to have you and get to chatting with you offline here. So this next question, opinion on Mikhail Kamara from Indiana. That's from Ulas. He's got an interesting frame. He's got like a Dwight Freeney frame, 6'1", 265. Was a pretty productive player in the middle of his career until his production really kind of fell off this year. But he's got, I think he's had 10 sacks before. I always like when those guys also go north of like 10, 12 tackles for loss. So like, he's got production on his record. But I don't love that the final season for him, I think he only had like a couple sacks, which isn't great, but he's a powerful edge rusher who could, set the edge. And I think he's got a little bit of a ceiling. You're not going to get a lot of wiggle with him, but if you want like a diet Quiddy pay, then I think that's totally fine.
Don't you dare tell that to people. They're going to be so upset if you say diet Quiddy pay. We can never use
Sorry,
that
guys.
comparison here. But no, I mean, with his kind of shorter size, but like bigger frame, he reminds me a little bit of an edge rusher that Lou Anarumo deployed in Cincinnati and Cameron Sample, who was there for a couple years. So we could see the Colts being interested on day 3. I know we're all big on Indiana players right now, so it never hurts to go after the champions for sure. Next question here. If Pierce leaves, does this shift the round 2 focus from edge or linebacker into receiver? I think so. I think especially over linebacker, and even if they go into the draft with like Shea Gualubi as their top linebacker, it's hard to find productive year 1 wide receivers. And like, don't get me wrong, you can find good year 1 wide receivers out of the draft, like a guy who can step in the NFL and give you 500 or 600 yards. But if you really want that guy who's going to fill the void left by Alec Pierce, you probably need to take that guy at 47, and that's your best bet. Like outside of getting a Puka Nacua in the middle rounds, usually in year 1, these guys are going to have to be like top 40, top 50 selections if you want them to be very productive. So yeah, I think probably at 47, you're going to need to take a wide receiver. I hate to bypass edge, but you might have to in this scenario.
Yeah, I agree. I do think you have to wind up prioritizing receiver there, but you can take the money you would have given Pierce and use it to allocate towards the front 7. Like, were you already planning on getting like a Trey Hendrickson or Rashawn Gary or someone, like I said, you can also add in like one of the mid-level guys like a Malcolm Kuntz or the guy from Seattle we've been talking about a lot lately. Like, you could probably afford an extra edge rusher over what you were already going to do. I still prefer the draft for linebacker because I'm just not in love with this free agent class. But if Pierce leaves, it does give you the money you were going to pay him. So
yeah, a little bit of wiggle room, I suppose. We have a couple questions from Jesse here in the Discord up next. First one, we'll go with this one first here. In the unlikeliest of scenarios where we lose both Jones and Pierce, what is the plan heading into next season? Do we scramble to find replacements and attempt to compete, or is it time to blow it up and rebuild? Does drafting a quarterback and receiver become a priority? Like we just talked about receiver obviously becoming a priority. I will say this, though, with the current GM in charge, there's no chance you're rebuilding going into next season because his job is on the line. Same with the head coach as well. Same with a lot of these veteran players on the roster. So they wouldn't just blow it up. They would kind of scramble to plan B and plan C to replace those guys and really get into building up that front 7. So yeah, if they were to also lose Jones, that would be weird. But if they lost Jones and Pierce, they'd probably pivot to Kyler Murray. They'd probably pivot to a wide receiver in the top 50. And they would go from there about trying to be competitive next season. So, yeah, I don't think there's any scenario where they're blowing it up going into next year with the job status of the most important people making those decisions.
Yeah, no, they don't tank. Even if they completely fumble this bag, they will not tank. They'll have to completely change their identity. I think I would, if I were them, I would just sock so much money into the defense. It's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, get Kyler Murray on that cheap deal, because you have to get a startable player for cheap if possible, or like Geno Smith, which not great. But then just throw so much money and draft capital at the defense. I mean, obviously you have to replace Pierce too, but just let the defense carry your entire team, and like hopefully the offense can supplement it enough to be winning. But yeah, Ballard's going to go down swinging even if he loses. These guys, like, he's a survivor. That's what we know about him. He will do just enough for it to be somewhat relevant. But not tanking. For sure.
Yeah, and Jesse is just all caught up in the flames here. He said if Ballard fumbles both Jones and Pierce, is there a chance he gets fired before his contract ends? He would just get let go at the end of the season. They would let the season play out and let it go. They wouldn't fire him in the middle of the season. Although, Jesse, I like where your head's at there, buddy. I like where your head's at there. It wouldn't happen in season.
Yeah, I don't think it would happen in season. You know, a lot that usually happens so that you get the guy out the door and you begin finding your replacement. I just think finding the replacement will be happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, when his contract's up, see you later, dude. I think that's how it would go. I really don't see them just pulling the plug on the GM during the year, but they would be looking for his replacement already, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then our final question from Melvin in the Discord as well. Could the Colts target Marshawn Latimore in free agency for veteran and depth status? Melvin, I love you, man. You're great. I don't think, honestly, when it comes to questions, it's better to ask than not to ask. Absolutely not, though, with Marshawn Latimore. I live in the DMV area, the Washington, D.C. fan base area. So I watched a lot of Latimore since he got traded to the Washington Commanders. Beyond cooked, like absolutely cooked in every
Yeah.
every way, and especially for a defense where you want to get younger and faster and just get like guys who can stretch their legs and run a little bit. I I would rather not another 30-plus-year-old corner who, honestly, I think Lattimore is like 30, right? He's not even that old,
Right.
but his legs are like 50 at this point. He's had a lot of injuries in his career that has really slowed him down. So I'd rather, if you're going to go for depth, like rely on Wally, rely on some other young guys, draft another corner. Lattimore just doesn't do anything for me. I mean, look, if it's a vet minimum, what I would say, I wouldn't say no to anybody at the vet minimum, but that's probably the only scenario there.
No, I'd much rather try and have Jonathan Edwards do something, or bring back Cameron Mitchell or something. Like you mentioned, Lattimore's legs are just on dog years at this point, and it's like, I think not. Like
Yeah.
it'd be cheap on the vet minimum, sure, but there's almost no point. You know what I mean? Like you would feel obligated to give him reps that could go to younger guys. And
It would be Xavier Howard again, I think, honestly. Like,
yes,
maybe
yeah,
not that bad, but close. I think in a
not
lot of
far off.
ways.
Yeah.
Ask any Washington fan how it looked the last couple years, and it was not good. But that's all we have for today. Thanks again to everyone in our Everydayer Club and our Insider program for sending in all those questions. And if you guys want to join their ranks and make sure that you can get your questions in when we do exclusive episodes like this, make sure you head to lockedoncolts.supercast.com and use code FREEAGENCY, all caps, all together, or follow the link in our show notes right now for, again, either one of those programs. But thanks again for tuning in to today for Locked On Colts. We'll be back yet again tomorrow, probably. We don't have any shows planned for this weekend, guys, but Jake and I are going to be on call for any breaking news. So if anything breaks with Zaire Franklin, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Daniel Jones, whatever, we will jump on here and record if it is big enough news. So while our next show is planned for Monday, we'll probably see you guys over the weekend as well. Make sure you guys also subscribe to our show to get all the latest episodes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at ZachHicks2, all on socials. That is all we have for today. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you guys probably this weekend.